and after many years, she decided to follow her passion for teaching. Over the last 10 years, she has successfully managed a tuition center. Ms. Titi is the founder and CEO of Towin Academy in Belgium, XX, and has had the opportunity to support hundreds of families on their 11 plus educational journey. She has also worked in a school on a part-time basis. This enabled Ms. Titi to infuse a unique style of teaching and develop a curriculum to support students. So, great minds, once again, please join me to welcome Ms. Titi Windapo. Welcome.
Hello, good afternoon. I'll just try and, yes, that's good, that's better. I'm going to try and share my screen, actually. I'm not sure if I've got, okay, have I got I think I've got access now, so let's see, just try and share that. Okay. Present. Okay, I don't think you can't see my screen yet, right? I think I did that the wrong way around. I'm just going to adjust that. Anyway, good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining. And I'm just going to give me a sec just to share my screen so we can get cracking. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, good, fantastic. Thank you. Let me just, okay, that's way at the wrong end. Right. So good afternoon once again. My name is Titi Windapo. Thank you so much. You sort of got the pronunciation right. Okay, and thank you for the bio as well. So I'm today going to be talking about the structure of the UK education system. And this is really quite informative, will be informative for those who are even permanent residents of the UK, in the UK, because the education system is sort of quite convoluted and a bit something you have to wrap your head around sometimes. And we sort of just generally as parents tend to follow our children through school. So that's what I'm just going to, this is me on a page. Thank you for the introduction. I didn't know that was going to be intrusive. This is me on a page, and I'm a mom, a proud mom of 2 young adults. As you can see, I like teaching children, particularly in primary school. And for the last 16, 17 years, I've had the privilege of seeing them through primary school to a lot of them are now working now. Yes, you've already mentioned, I worked in the civil service for over 21 years and I left about 9 years ago, going to 10 years now. I do love running. I love running. Particularly, I've run a handful of marathons. And yes, I am a qualified accountant, a fellow of ACCA and ICANN UK. So that's me, like on a page, really. So now I'll just talk about the education system. There are 5 stages. I'm going to go through them. Today, obviously, is to give us a taster of what the education system looks like. Depending on where you're at with your child, then you need to perhaps definitely go and drill down and then find out more about that. So stage 1, as I said, there are 5 stages. We've got the early years. Stage 2, we've got the primary, we've got secondary, we've got further education, we've got higher education. So those are the 5 main stages of the education system. And I'm just going to drill down into each of these. So we've got the early years. So the early years, obviously a child is born, and then where do they get involved in the education system? When they're about 3, 4-year-old, if a parent is interested, you could start to interact and sort of just interact with the education system. They start to go to nursery, for a couple of hours. The government actually provides 15 hours free education for children that are 3 and 4-year-olds. Parents will usually get it in form of a voucher. If your child is in a nursery full time, you probably get that sort of converted to money. So you get some amount of money knocked off the cost by the cost you have to pay the nursery. And it's actually 15 hours free education, up to 38 weeks per year. And some parents will get more, obviously, depending on whether they are claiming benefits and so on and so forth if they're out of employment or they're full-time students and so on. So that could also be extended. And it could be in any setting. It could be in a nursery. It could be with a childminder. Obviously, the childminder has to be a registered childminder, that has got this as part of their provision. So that's the early years. That's sort of stage one. Primary now. So primary school, obviously, when a child is 5 years old, the school is compulsory for a child from 5 years old on to the age of 18. But I'll talk about that later on. So schools, there are two main types of schools you can find at the primary sector. You can find infant school or junior school. An infant school really is just a school where you just have reception year 1 and year 2, and that's it. And then some schools they would have they would say junior school, and a junior school. So primary, so key stage 1, that's the key stage 1. So you have year 1 and year 2. And then I just want to talk more about this because a lot of parents are perhaps oblivious to this. At the key stage 1, when a child gets to year 2, they actually have an exam, which is a national exam, which is called the key stage 1 exam. And if your child is at this stage, they probably had the exam. This SATs for key stage 2 was actually week before last. So, but it's best to find out about this if your child is going through primary school. And these are national exams. And it's best to also find out samples of these papers are available on the website, like the speaker before me mentioned. The Gov website is full of a lot of resources. You can find sample papers, past papers, so you could see what your child is being assessed on. So that's key stage 1. Now, infant school and junior school, like I said, a junior school is an all-through school. It's more or less a school that starts from reception all the way to year 6. But in some schools, you would have 2 schools on the same site. You have the infant school, whereby they would have like XYZ infant school. Your child will go there for year 1, year 2, and then when they get to the junior school, they then transfer next door, more or less, where they go to the junior school. And some schools, they would have that all in one go. So key stage 2, like I said, is actually from year 3 to year 6. And basically, at this stage, when the child gets to year 6, they have an exam, another exam, which is called the key stage 2 exams. And in between that, there are other exams which I may mention. I'll just mention them, which happens. They actually happen internally. They're not sort of assessed at the government level, but you still need to know about them. And some of these were introduced recently. So, for example, parents whose children attend school regularly and a good school where they interact with the school, we know they get spellings. This is actually examinable. They actually get things like year 4 now, they actually have something they call the multiplication check, whereby your child is expected to do the times tables. So parental involvement is very, very crucial and absolutely very important and can never be undermined. So for key stage 2, like I said, they have the exam when they get to year 6. The current year, they've just had their SATs about 2 weeks ago, and that is when they transfer to secondary school. And that is more or less the end of the primary school stage. Then now stage 3, you have the secondary school. Now, there are so many types of schools. If you Google it, just try me on this, Google types of schools, you come up with a long list. And they all have different things, but I just want to just put them into a compartment. So you have state schools, you have private schools, and that could happen at the primary level as well. Now, state schools obviously are the schools that are government funded. They're funded by the government. They get their funding from the government. It's a case of bumps on seats. They get paid everything they do. They get different source of income and from the government. And then you have private schools. Private schools are the ones you pay for. So you choose that you should make a choice that your child should go to an independent school. You pay for them. The price varies from, and a child could go to a private school right from reception all the way to A levels. So that is a parental choice. You choose that. But having said that, even through when a child goes through school, you still have a choice to make. So there's state boarding schools, there are comprehensive schools, there are academies, there are free schools, there are grammar schools, which is the area where I sort of my niche, where I specialize in. And these are all government funded schools. So depending on where you are located, it's best to find out the schools around you, what kind of schools they are, and what you can actually assess, which ones are performing really good. All of this information are available on the website. What the school ethos is, what does the head teacher, what's the drive behind the leadership of the school? Try to find out all of this, because although these are government funded schools, they also have independence in terms of where they make decisions. So for example, academies really are sort of a sponsored school. They have a sponsor. It might be a person, it may be a trust, it might be an organization. And that organization will try to infuse the school with their ethos. So just finding out what the schools do. Some of them specialize, some of these schools specialize in certain things, some of them in languages, some of them in science, but just find out what the school is about and what the school ethos is. That will be something that every parent should do. Then there's Key Stage 3 and Key Stage 4 in the secondary. At the secondary stage, you have year 7. So obviously a child finishes year 6 in primary, then they move to year 7. So I've got Nigerian heritage. We call it, when I was in school, long time ago, it used to be Form 1, but I think now this will be JSS1 or thereabout. So this is year 7 and year 8. And year 7, year 8, obviously the child is getting used to the school. They start to choose, they do all the subjects, they move from class to class, they have a head of form, they have the teachers, and this is where the child starts to get used to secondary school and how to do life in secondary school, basically. Then there's Key Stage 4. And Key Stage 4, these are years 9 to year 11, where a child obviously will choose the subjects they have to do, and they go through GCSE. Now, this is quite crucial because at this stage, your child, there are some things that are compulsory. Sorry, just come back one slide. So year 9, they choose, they have to do science, they have the sciences, English and maths is compulsory, one modern language is compulsory as well. They select at least 5 subjects that are compulsory, English, maths, sciences, then they have a modern foreign language, and there's something else. So those are the core. Then they have other subjects that they have to do. Depending on where your child goes to secondary school, GCSEs, they could have between 10, 11, or even 13 subjects. And then a couple of things to be aware of, because some of these sciences, they'll say, oh, some of them are doing triple science, some of them are doing double science, some of them are in the foundation, and so on and so forth. You need to be aware of these things. And I will mention that in my last slide when I'm sort of sharing tips on things that we can do as parents. So Key Stage 3 is secondary school, basically from year 7 all the way to year 11. Then after that, they have the GCSEs. Now, in 2017, the grading for GCSE changed in the United Kingdom. We used to have A stars all the way, but now that's changed. And I'll just show you a table that would share this. So basically before, we used to have A stars all the way to G. And then they used to say, if you want to go on to A levels, they would say, well, what are the grades you have from A stars to C? Now that has changed now, and we have now used this number grading from 1 to 9, 9 being the equivalent of A star, and 1 being the equivalent of G. So this is the new grading system that is now used. So basically, we want to obviously be aiming for our children to be high-performing children, to be performing in the upper, the upper sector from grade 7 to grade 9. And this is quite crucial because this actually determines, where they do their A levels, what subject they can select, and so on and so forth. So this is the entry point for the next stage. So it's stage 4, which is now further education. Now, further education is anything post 16 and excluding higher education. I would explain higher education in stage 5. Now, which is all this includes A levels, and A levels in this country really falls into 2 categories. You could have A levels, which a child can actually do A levels where they have grades, which is grade A, B, C, or D or E, or you could have the IB, which is the International Baccalaureate. So some schools do this. So for example, my daughter went to a school where it's IB that it do. Now, the main difference is A-levels is basically you have year 12 and you have year 13 and you sit an exam and that is graded accordingly. But with the IB, it's more project-based. And there are some schools, private schools, government schools that actually do the IB. And the IB is more internationally recognized. So it's more or less the equivalent of a diploma. So depending on where your child goes to school, they can do either of these two at the end of year 13. There are also other sources as well. So like I said there, I mean, with further education, you also have some sixth form colleges, you have a lot of schools that do some older diploma courses. All of that falls within further education. So anything that is post-16 that excludes actually going into university, that could also not just include things to do with education per se. There could also be things like English and maths. So for example, every child must have at least a grade C or equivalent of a grade C. And if they don't do well in that, they would have to go back to school to do that. So this is actually anything within that sector is actually regarded as further education. And then we've got stage 5, we've got the undergrads. So this is a child actually going to university per se. So basically they apply to University of X to study X, Y, Z, A, B, or C. That's postgraduate, undergraduate courses. They come out with a BSc, they come out with a BSc honors, a BA honors, and that is all under higher education. Like I said, with further education, that's everything post-16 that excludes higher education. So higher education includes undergraduate, other undergraduate courses like HNDs, and there are a lot of other courses. There's a whole range of courses that could be held here, and some of them could be done online. So it could be done like Open University. Open University actually has a lot of courses which they do virtually, and some of them are actually in person, whereby your child sort of goes to university and attend classes. Then obviously this also includes things like postgraduate courses. So these are the masters, the doctorate degrees, and all of that is a whole range of degrees here. So that is the higher education in a nutshell. So now, just to really give you a quick summary, there's a lot to unpack, to be quite honest. But what I would want to say here is, with the education system, you need to find out where your child is at, and you need to sort of find out what schools you have in your area. And one thing you really, really need to know and knock it down is you have a choice of where your child goes to school. You have a say where your child goes to school. You don't have to follow the norm that, oh, because something has been suggested to you, that is what you need to go for. No, you can actually choose where your child studies. Sometimes it takes a bit of planning. Rather than allow it to happen, you need to plan, find out exactly what's happening in your area. So for example, I'm in an area considered deprived, sort of, and I didn't want my children did their primary school in the local authority where I live, but I didn't want them to do their secondary schools in this area at all, because as of the time when I was looking at secondary schools in the areas, there were low performing schools. It's either I convert to Catholic, which I wasn't willing to do, or there were low, like I said, just generally low performing schools achieving 26%, with their GCSEs. I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. So when my children were from year 3, I was proactive about it. I went and found out about schools, and I realized there was none of the schools that I liked. So I went further out. I went for grammar schools. So grammar schools, obviously with those, they're tested, a child will be tested. I prepared my children for that. And they're schooled outside. I'm still living in the area. They're schooled outside the area. That's with the secondary school. You could do the same. You could find out schools that are high performing schools, find out what the criteria is for that school, and make sure that your child goes to a school where they would have access to the best of the best. And all of us as parents, is the very least we could do. Another thing we could also do is parental engagement. Now, one thing I found particularly, I'm talking, please pardon me, I'm talking as a Black person. We don't engage with the schools. We don't get involved. Get involved in the school, volunteer in the school, be a parent governor in the school, find out, have a say in what happens in the school. So for example, this afternoon, the reason why I joined the meeting late, do apologize, is because I was teaching till after 2. And I was quite surprised. A school that I know very well, they've had a new head teacher, and now they don't have homework. That's it. No homework. I mean, what, as parents, what does your child do after school? Your child finishes school and they come home around 3:30. So if a school is saying no homework, that decision wasn't made by the head teacher. There were governors who made those decisions. But if you're a school governor, you can say, no way, a child has to have some homework. But because we have all this kind of counter conversation, I'm sure you guys have heard it on the news. They say our children are stressed, we're giving them too much homework and so on. There's that push for that. If that push is greater than the push back saying, no, we need to engage our children after school, these decisions will be made on our behalf. So we need to be involved in the schools in our area, not because our children are going there, but because we want to have a say. So that is one of the things that we need to do. So before I go on and sort of just digress a bit, I just summarize the 5 stages, and then I'll talk about sharing more around what we can do, how we can take proactive steps to make sure we actually ensure our children excel. So summarizing, this is an overview of the 5 stages. Really, like I said, early years, it's a child is between 3 and 4. They have nursery, and year R is reception. Primary school between the ages of 5 to 11. You have years 1 to year 6, and you've got 2 key exams. You've got the key stage 1 exams and the key stage 2 exams. And then secondary from 11 to 16, from year 7 to year 11. You've got key stage 3 and key stage 4. Those are the way the school looks at it. But you have GCSE exams at the very end, which obviously transfers and sort of enables a child to transition into further education, which is the 16 to 19 bracket. Either they're doing A-level, 6th form, college, or they could be doing things like apprenticeship, or they actually, provided they are in employment or they're in education, any form of education, that will fall under further education. And then you have the higher education, which is around the post-18, which is undergraduate courses, other undergraduate courses, postgraduate courses like the master's, and the postgraduate courses like doctorate, and so on and so forth. Now, I'm going to share my last slide. And the reason why I'm going to say this is my last slide, I'm just going to show everything and have a talk around what we can do as parents to make sure that we proactively get involved and we make sure that our children really excel in the school setting. So I've called this, this is my 12 dozens of C's. So, and this is more or less a page just to talk about guidance and tips and advice. And this is based on my experience, one as a parent and one as someone who's been in the teaching game now for 16 years. And the things that I see, the interaction I have with parents and the guidance I give to parents in terms of what we can do. So first is having clarity. I mean, I wasn't here to listen to the talk about goal setting and so on, but I'm sure you need to know your why. You have to have clarity. Where are you going? So just putting it in context, for those of us who drive, if you're going from point A to point B, you set your sat nav from point A, from your leaving destination. That's where you put the postcode of your final destination. And little by little, your sat nav will then say, when you get here, turn right. When you get here, turn left. Oh, if you miss the turn, oh, it reroutes and all of that. So you have to have clarity. You need to know why. Why do you want your child to go to a good school? And I think really that answer, I think, is obvious, but you need to know why. Why do you want your child to excel? Because you want to leave a legacy. You actually want your child to excel. You want your child to not be part of the statistics. For me, that was the main driving force. I didn't want my child to be part of the statistics. I don't want my child to join the gang. I didn't want my child to be in prison. I mean, we all want these things. And I'm talking as a parent, but I'm sure I'm talking for every parent listening here. We all want these things. Then you have to make a commitment. You can't just say you want it. You need to actually go out and do something about it. You have to have those goals written out. You have to have step-by-step guidance in terms of what you're going to do to actually get your child to excel in school. You have to have the courage. It's not easy. Yes, we're all busy. We all have jobs. We all have X, Y, Z, A, B, and C. We have parents that we look after at home. We have children here. We have a lot of things pulling at us from every direction. You have to have the courage to say no and the courage to say yes. Sometimes you say no to those things that are distracting. And yes, if you have to say no to people that are not necessarily doing you well, then do that. You have to be curious. What schools are in your area? How are they performing? How is your current school, the school where your child is going to? What are they? How are they rated? Find out. Go online. Find out from the school. Go online. Go and look at the history of the school. Go and look at the ethos of the school. Who's in the school governor? What are they saying? And get involved. That is one thing you could do. Get involved. But you can actually find out the result of the school. The last time they had the Ofsted, what was the rating? What were the issues? Find out about this thing. Then create create an environment for your child to learn. Create a conducive environment for your child to learn. If your child is in a room, this is me personally, I'm sharing some of my personal thoughts here. Your child is in a room and you're allowing them free access to the computer. You don't know what time they go to bed, all of that. Take charge, compromise, have a time where your child has access to these things and have a time where they should study. So create the right environment that is conducive for your child to learn. And obviously, once you've done that, be consistent with it. It's not, oh, we do homework today, we're going to start reading, we read 5 minutes today, then we don't do it for a long time. Be consistent. And it's better to start small. If all you can do is 5 minutes a day reading with your child, or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, and you do that regularly, it adds up. Once you start to create that habit, then it becomes part and parcel of what your child is doing. So make sure you try as much as possible to do that. Then communicate. Communicate with your child's school, communicate with your child, communicate with your friends, communicate with other parents. Go to the school gate and communicate with the parents. Communicate with your child. Find out how is your child feeling in school. In this day and age where our mental health is priority, communicate with your child. Is your child happy in the school? If your child is not happy, why is your child not happy? Don't just say, oh, that's it. No, just get on with it. Find out why is your child not happy. If there's anything your child is not happy about a particular teacher because they could be bullied, and this happens, or it could be another student. Communicate with the school, communicate with your child. Make sure you're having that regular communication. It's a three-way communication. Communicate with the school, communicate with your child, and get involved, collaborate. Collaboration, collaborate with other parents. Find out from other parents, parents of children that have gone to that school before or that are planning to go to the school, or parents that are currently going to that school. Collaborate with other parents. Find out how they do stuff, because they may be sharing an idea or tip that may actually help you, to get to that next point quicker than, you doing it on your own, because you've not thought about those things. Commend your child. If your child is doing well in school, commend your child. And really, really say well done. Say well done for the things they've done well. And if you have to encourage and give your child an incentive, to encourage them to learn. So for example, you want your child to read and they're not necessarily someone who reads. Give them, challenge them. Say, okay, you know what? If you read this book, in a week, this is the reward. If that would help them along the line, do so. And what you could do, you could have it ranges depending on the child. You could just have stars. Just say, okay, you've read 2 pages today. That's it, you get a star. You've read 5 pages today. Well done, you've got a star. You've learned a word today. That's it, you get a star. You've learned your times table. Commend your child when they've done well. We don't have to always just tell our children tell them off when they've done things that are wrong and so on. Then coordination, plan. Okay, so you've got this big dream you want to accomplish. You want your child to go to Oxford, to Cambridge. You have to have a plan. It's not going to happen really just by saying it. You need to have a plan, and you have to break that plan down, into weekly, monthly. Then you follow through step by step until you get to your final destination. And then you have to make choices. We have choices. You can choose where your child goes to school. University of Cambridge is just a university. The people who go there don't have 2 heads. Find out another parent who's done it, and I can assure you there are many. Find out another parent who's done it. If you want your child to go to a private school and you want that 100% scholarship, you want your child to get that, find out from parents who've done these things. Go and link up with those parents. Find out what they did differently. If you want your child to go to a very high-performing school, it could be a drama school, it could be, any school. Find out from parents who've done it. You've got a choice. You can decide where your child goes to school. Get involved and then just link up with those parents. And obviously, last but not least, change. We cannot just say we want these things by mouth and not be willing to change. And change is a journey, it's a process. We have to be feeling good about living that comfortable zone, so because really sometimes it's about just knowing what to do. And if you don't know what to do, then find out somebody who's done it before, because that is the best way to learn. There's a popular saying, which I love: when the student is ready, the teacher will appear. I can assure you, if you set those goals and you start to dig, you'll find people who will be able to direct you and guide you to get to that next step. So really, as parents, the onus is on us. Yes, I've gone through the UK education system, but where do you want your children to go? Do you want your child just to go to the school down the road, or you want your child to go to a high performing school? Eton College is there. There are a lot of schools where your child can go to. And yes, you may not be able to afford it. Some of these schools actually provide scholarships. Find out about these things and really just get engage with other parents that have done it. And take the action and take that action consistently. Engage your child, commend your child, tell your child, let your child dream about these schools. Why do you want your child to go there? They may not necessarily see the whole picture, but you do. And get them to have that dream about going to a place where they would actually enjoy the UK education system. So it's not just about going down the school. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with going to the school down the road. No, I'm not saying that by any chance. I'm just saying, if you want your child to actually aspire to go to other schools outside that, then there's nothing wrong with that. Dream, and then make sure that you make that happen by being consistent, by being committed, having clarity of purpose, creating the right environment. Commend your child when your child has done that, and then sort of go ahead and make it happen. So on that note, I would finish. That's all I've got to say for now. And if you want to contact me, there's my email address. That should be admin@twinacademy.co.uk, not .com. My email address, and you can contact me on IG as well. So I don't know if you're going to take questions at the end. I'll probably will leave that till the very end, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions. But if you want to find out more about grammar schools, primary schools, secondary schools advice, please feel free to drop me an email. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions. So thank you so much for having me this afternoon. And I would sort of stop there and stop sharing as well.
Thank you, Ms. Titi Windapo. I like that name, Windapo. I like it. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. You are very, very right. The engagement of parents in children's school is very crucial. Again, one of the formative session, another session I was previewed, listened to yesterday, was parents are not involved what is going on in the school. We don't even know what goes on in the school because we are busy making money. We're busy chasing our own dreams to provide for the family. But what we're providing for, we are not even investing in it really. Ms. Adi talk about investment. We need to invest, and this doesn't cost money. Well, some to a certain extent invest in children's education, the best school for them to give them a better chance in life. Sit down with them to know what they're doing. That is very true. So thank you for that information. Parent, current parent, future parent, you may be the parent of your own family as well. Let's get involved in their lives to know what's going on in the school. Thank you so much, Ma, for that information. Yeah.